How is everybody? I hope that you got to enjoy the sunshine a little bit. It was gorgeous outside. I also want to tell you that, when you read the Bible, if you're like me, every once in a while you might think, oh man, I wish I could have seen that. I wish I could have been there when that miracle was done. Well, I want you to know, as I was just standing over there, God said to watch and look, because what was done in the Bible, he's getting ready to do miracles on that level again. So I want you to watch and behold, because you're going to see God's hand work where you think there's not a way. God says, watch me work, and I'm so excited about that. If you have been a Christian any time at all, perhaps you prayed this prayer: God, use me. God, show me what to do. God, I'm yours. And if you prayed that prayer, then there's a time that God will actually take you up on that word. Have you had God tell you to do something and you think, oh, is that really you, God? Do you want somebody else to do that? Because somebody else is much more qualified than me. But he'll remind you of the prayer that you prayed so earnestly to him in that moment of, tell me what to do and I will do it. I'm yours, Lord. If you're anything like me, you've had some good assignments that you're like, yeah, I will gladly do that. And then some that you would rather not. Some that were uncomfortable, some that maybe you thought, what is everybody going to think if I do this? People will watch me. What will they think? What will they say? Will they think I'm crazy? Well, as bad as I thought I had it at certain times, I was reading about one character in the Bible that was a prophet, and really, I have no right to complain. What he had to do was much harder than anything that God has asked me to do, and tonight we're going to hear a little bit about his story. But every time that God does something, he doesn't just do it for the face value. There's symbols, there's meanings, there's other people that he touches through the situation. And that is what he has done in this story. He has used a man, but the story that he is going to unfold means more than just what it is on face value. If you haven't heard a lot about him, his name was Hosea. Hosea was a prophet, meaning that God would tell him what to tell the people, and he would gladly deliver it. He had a great track record of saying things that God had told him to say, and they had come to pass, and so he had a really good reputation. He was not poor by any means. He came from upper class. He had the respect of most everybody in the town. They looked at him. He was a man of wisdom. He was a man of integrity. He was a man of character. He just had it all together. And he had prayed one of those prayers, I'm sure, of God, where you tell me to go, I'll go. What you tell me to do, I will do. And so let's listen to his assignment. And this was so far out of left field that he was not expecting this in a million years. It said, the Lord began to speak to Hosea. And the Lord said to Hosea, and this is in the first chapter and the second verse, go and take yourself a wife. Okay, that's good. He's single. He wants a wife, wants to have kids, have the good upstanding home that he's always dreamt of. He's a good catch. Oh, but he doesn't just say take any kind of wife. He says, I want you to take a wife of harlotry. If you don't know what that is, layman's terms, go find a prostitute. Now, I don't know about you, but I think if God would go tell me to find a gigolo to get married, I would really say, Satan, get behind me. Because that doesn't line up with my Bible and the God who I serve. Surely that's the enemy. But Hosea knew God's voice. See, something a little bit different about the Old Testament prophets, sometimes they would actually hear God speak. And if you've heard God's voice once, you can pick it out anytime. So he tells him, I want you to go find a prostitute, and then I want you to have kids with her. And he says, because the land, speaking of where he lives, Israel, has committed great harlotry by departing from me. So now Hosea has the assignment of finding a prostitute. Now that wasn't too difficult. There was a certain area where all of them were. You knew where to go. But this is a place that he had stayed away from. Because see, he was upright. He was righteous. He was holy. He was a man of God. And a man of God should not, in case you have any doubt, should not be visiting those kind of places. Should not be looking for a wife with those kind of women. That goes against what you would think. That goes against what you would teach your children when they look for a spouse. You wouldn't say, all right, son, you're of dating age now, and I want you to go get a prostitute. You will be happy. She will be a great, faithful woman to you. Those words don't go together. That wasn't wise, sound advice. And if we think our assignment is a little rough and we get a little embarrassed of what will people think, what did he go through? This was in a town where they watched everything that he did because he was the mouth voice of God. He was upper crust. He was high on the pedestal, and yet here he goes visiting this side of town. Could you imagine the gossip? Hey, you won't believe who I saw the other night. Who? Hosea. Nah, it couldn't have been Hosea. No, there's no way Hosea would have been over there. Had to be his cousin. You know, his cousin, he's always been a little flaky and they kind of look alike. No, I'm serious. It was him. I saw him. Well, he does. He finds a prostitute that he is going to set free. He's going to marry her, give her a life. And of all things, her name is Gomer. Now, I'm really hoping that she was a lot prettier than how her name sounds. But her name was Gomer. And it's not that her parents didn't love this child, but when God wants a child to be born a certain name because it means something, that's a name that's going to come out of your mouth. So Hosea means the one who helps or salvation. Gomer means completion. So keep that in mind. So they get married. And things go along okay for a while. And she ends up having a boy and another boy and a girl. They end up having 3 kids together. Now he thinks her past is in the past. She's been a good wife, a good mother. Things are good. But you know, I don't know what his friend circle was like. I don't know what he went through. I'm sure maybe a friend or two would have pulled him off to the side and said, hey, I think you can do better. Do you know what kind of woman this is? Think about the conversations, them thinking that they were saying the right thing to look out for their friend. But what they didn't know is he was on an assignment from God. So they have the 3 kids. It's going okay. He's got established. The village people have kind of sort of gotten used to the idea, but one morning he wakes up and she's not there. Rolls over to his side of the bed, her side of the bed, and doesn't even look like it's been slept in. He goes and he looks in the other rooms and he can't find her. And so now here he is, a single dad with 3 kids. And she's gone. So I'm sure there were some dark days, maybe some sleepless nights. By this time, maybe he had actually had fallen in love with her and thought that he had rescued her and had delivered her. And then she just slipped back and out of his hands. Perhaps he felt like he had failed God. You gave me this assignment. Surely they would want to be delivered from this kind of lifestyle, and I was good to her, and I provided for her. We had children together. Did I fail my assignment, God? And then when God speaks again, he tells him one of the oddest things. He said in chapter 3 and verse 1, "Go again and love a woman," talking about Gomer, "who is loved by a lover." In other words, she slipped back into what was familiar to her. And she's committing adultery. See, they're still married. Just like the love of the Lord for the children of Israel who looked to other gods and loved the raisin cakes of the pagans. So he goes to find the wife that has left him. And where does he have to go again? Back in the same garbage pit that he found her. How embarrassing that must be to have to knock on the doors looking, "Hey, have you seen my wife? She used to be a prostitute. Her name was Gomer." Maybe on the street he had to stop men on the way of saying, "Have you seen a lady by the name of Gomer? That's my wife." Maybe one of the guys said, "Man, sorry, dude, I had no idea she was married. Yeah, I saw her just a few days ago. She was down the street at that house." But he goes to find her, and he doesn't find her in a house. Instead, he finds her on an auction block. This was true human sex slavery in the highest form. When the one that owned her decided that she would be worth more if he sold her than what she was bringing in, they would put them up on an auction block like a stage, and they would chain them. And most of the time strip them down because you needed to see what you were getting, right? And he hears the auctioneer calling out, "How much for this one? How much for this one?" as the crowd sneers and gears at them and maybe decides to bid a bid or two. And sure enough, he sees his wife. He tells the gentleman, "That's my wife," thinking he can claim her again because, see, he has a right to her. They've gotten married. But the guy says, "I don't care who it is. She's mine now, and you have to pay." So he ends up paying whatever it is that they ask to get his wife, which was rightfully his in the first place, back into his home. Do you see any similarities there? See, God created us. He owned us. We had a contract, if you will. And even though he owned us, by choices that we had made to redeem us, there was a price that had to be paid. So it says that he paid what was owed, and then just, instead of setting her free, which is what I would have wanted to do, "You're on your own now," that's not what he did, because that's not what God had intended. So he said to her, "You shall stay with me many days, and you shall not play harlot, nor shall you have a man. So too will I be towards you." In other words, he was renewing his vows to her. He was marrying her all over again. I don't know what it was like from her point of view. But see, even though you don't like something in your life, it becomes familiar. And while on the outside, her clothes might have changed, her clothes style, she may have tried to sit down and read the Word of God with her husband. Maybe she talked the right talk to all of the people around her, and she looked fine on the outside. She looked like she had been redeemed, restored, a brand new creature. But see, just because you clean up the outside, the inside, she was probably still tormented. She didn't feel good enough. He could have told her all day long how you're forgiven, you're set free, you're redeemed, you're beautiful in my eyes. But she was listening to a different voice. She was listening to the voice of her past. And no matter how good she did, probably when she went to bed, the enemy told her, yeah, but you remember who you are. You're filthy. You're dirty. The kids would be better off without you. How about if when they grow up, they're going to say, hey, wasn't your mom the prostitute? Yeah, her and my dad used to get along really well together. How much do you charge today? Ask your mom. I think she's kind of pretty. There's no telling what those kids would have to go through. And maybe, just maybe, she did fall in love with Jose. And maybe she thought he could do better. So she listened to some lies, and she went back to what she hated, but it was familiar. And as she's standing and chained and sees no way out, she probably thinks, this is what I deserve. This is who I am. I don't think she made eye contact with anybody in the crowd. Shame and guilt has a way of doing that. You don't want to look anybody face to face, so you hang your head down. And hopefully her hair was long enough that it could cover part of her face, because that was the only thing that was really covered. And then she hears a familiar voice in the crowd. A voice that had brought her redemption. A voice that told her that she would be protected and loved. A voice that didn't ridicule her. But what was he doing there? Maybe just to mock her because that's what she deserved. Yet instead, she heard him say, how much? How much will it cost? And as they finally took off the chains and she's shaking, feeling dirty inside, can't lift her head up, rather than the rebuke that she is expecting because she deserves it, he instead says, I'm going to be faithful to you. You be faithful to me. I'm taking you back home. Wow. And we think, what a wonderful love story. So we have God, a prophet, and a prostitute. And if I would say best love story ever, you would think I'd lost my mind. Those three don't usually go together as best love story ever. But I want you to know that in this story, it's not just about these characters. We're in this story. See, my favorite verse is God so loved the world that he gave. He gave his only begotten Son that whosoever should believe in him should not perish but have everlasting life. God so loved the world. That's you and I. That's the rapist. That's the child molester. That's the thief. That's the murderer. That's the guy on the street. That's a person that's betrayed you. And we say, how? But he said that God so loved the world. There was a price to be paid for that love. And God sacrificed his son knowing that some people would never return that love back. He knew that. He knew there would be people that would take their last breath still cursing him and denying him. Yet he loved so much, not because that's what he does, it's who he is. It's all that he is. He is love. And Jesus, knowing that some people would denounce him, deny even his existence, deny his sacrifice, still chose to die on a cross. So, if you want to look at Hosea's name, salvation, let's put in God. We look at Gomer's name, completion. Jesus came and completed what was needed to be done for you and I. This man of God went to the dirtiest of places to save someone that was lost. In fact, when Jesus is on board, he's sitting with some tax collectors, some people that are lowly in character and morals than what the Pharisees would like. And they said, what manner of man is this that sits with these kind of people? In fact, Jesus even quotes a scripture from the book of Hosea back to them. See, we are all Gomers. We've all been lost. We've all been in places that a holy person shouldn't even enter into. Yet since God is love, he reached down to wherever we were, in our mess and in our filth, in our disbelief. We never were too dirty for him. And so he wants us, if we are going to be a reflection of him, because how do you pay him back? How can you ever live long enough to pay him back for coming to rescue you? And he says, I'll tell you how you can pay me back. He says, like I loved you, like I rescued you, there's a whole world full of Gomers out there. And they need someone to show God's love. They need someone to let them know that they were worth dying for and that they matter. See, he searched for us. And when he found us, then he paid the price. We may not have had physical chains on us like Gomer did, but the devil had wrapped us in all kinds of shackles and weights. And when we were on the selling block because that's what we deserved, God said, how much? How much? Even though we already belonged to him, he still was going to redeem us. How much? So my prayer for us is to be like a Hosea that will reach out to those that are in need. Now, don't twist my words and say, Pastor just said I need to go marry a prostitute, because that's what he did in the Bible. Symbolically, I am saying, reach out to those because God reached out to us. See, the men were wanting to buy her to use her. Hosea was wanting to buy her to heal her. Such a difference. So never let us get too righteous too conceited in our goodness that we forget that we are Gomers. And only because of God's goodness, only because of his mercy and his grace, did the shackles fall off. We were set free. And his only question was, how much? How much for this one? If you've never felt loved before, I hope when you leave tonight you will feel loved. Because Jesus looked at you, knew you were going to be born, and he said, how much? The devil said, your life. He said, you got it. Somebody had said, and it's so true, because since God is love, that if it was just you, he still would have came for you. So if the only thing really that he asked from you and I is to love those that he loves. See, he even loves those that will never return his love. That's kind of crazy, don't you think? Because we live in a world of, well, I'll love you if you love me. And if you stop loving me, well, then I'm going to put that wall up and I no longer love you. We would never give our heart and love somebody that we knew would never, ever return it back. Yet it says that he loves so much that even knowing that there will be people that will choose hell over eternity with him, he still loves. You can't get rid of him. Oh, other people may walk out of your life, but you're not getting rid of him because he is crazy in love with you. He watches you. I don't know if a lot of you have experienced when you have a baby and you've just gotten that baby to sleep, but for some reason, you just want to hug them. You just want to hold them. So instead, because you don't want to wake them up, because that's a lot of work getting them back to sleep, you just watch them. When I had my children, it's crazy how much time would go by, and I would just sit and watch them and have a goofy smile on my face. And they may not have been doing anything except for breathing. But I couldn't quit watching them. I was so in love. Well, that's God with you. He just watches you. And just the fact that you are born and you are breathing brings him joy. So Jesus completed what was needed. Jesus completes me. I hope he completes you, because if you try to find your completion and your joy and your peace in anything else, it will let you down. And actually, it's supposed to let you down, because he says, I'm the one that will supply. I'm the one that will stay up with you at night. I'm the one that will search for you. I'm the one that will pay a price for you. So I hope that as we go out here tonight, that maybe you will feel loved, for maybe you didn't before. Maybe you will feel redeemed, because he paid the price. And if you don't have love for one another, ask God to fill your heart with that. And the way that you can do it is you can think about when you were at your very, very, very worst. He never left you. He never turned his back on you. He waited for you to come home. So how can we not share that gift with others? So I know it's a strange story tonight, God, a prophet, and a prostitute. But now that you've heard the whole story, maybe you will realize that it was one of the greatest love stories ever. God bless you, my friends.